Neurodivergent astrologer. I'm going to teach you how you can manage your ADHD using astrology as a supportive tool for you. And this is especially helpful right now as we're entering the cold season by using the energy of Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius. And this is because I've seen a lot of clients, and I've experienced this myself, where ADHD people, our triggers get so much more pronounced when it gets colder, which I thought was an interesting correlation because Virgo is a very focused energy, and this is where a lot of people with ADHD during this time of the year, we start to lose focus. But by using these energies, we can actually cultivate a way to just manage our ADHD symptoms in a more productive way. And you can actually start this as early as Leo season. And this is because, contrary to the diagnosis, ADHD, the learning challenge, it's not so much a deficiency as much as it's a dysregulation in your attention span. And so it's really about finding that sweet spot, that Goldilocks of what environment, what circumstance helps you to have the healthy amount of focus so that you can be a productive, functioning member of society. And the thing is that an ADHD brain is very hypersensitized, so it's really important for us to regulate our emotions, our psychological state, our physical and spiritual state, which is great because these are the 4 ways that all of the planets can manifest. And so finding those areas to focus on and learning how to recalibrate in a way that works well for you is going to be really beneficial. The thing is that you're going to have to fluctuate regularly with ADHD, and just incorporating that and being aware of that can be especially helpful. The thing is that an ADHD brain has a lot of similarities to a child's brain because there's this dysregulation going on, and also the thing is that while it can be a deficiency where there's an inattentiveness, that's usually due to an environmental response. The special manifestations of ADHD, the root cause, is that when you're feeling out of alignment with what you're meant to do, that's when ADHD triggers kick in. Every physical ailment, diagnosis, health issue, symptom, it's rooted in an emotional, psychological, spiritual root cause. So identifying that is really important. And in the case with ADHD, it's when you are not spiritually fulfilled, this is when your ADHD kicks in. So you want to prioritize, as esoteric as it may seem, to focus on what you find fulfilling. And the way to stay connected and focused with an ADHD brain is to do things that light you up. The more you enjoy something, the more you're able to celebrate, the more you're going to be able to focus. So sometimes not everything that we do is going to be things that we enjoy, but as long as we find different ways to make it more enjoyable. This is why a lot of people with ADHD enjoy using music. Solfeggio frequencies is one of my favorite things. And so these are different tools that are available to you that you can take advantage of. And so this is why I'm recommending that if you are to start during Leo season, or you channel the energy of Leo, where you start thinking about what are some things that you enjoy, what are some things that light you up. Focus on what that is and start there. So many times in life, especially as we get older, we unconsciously just adapt to what makes sense, and we're just like, we start navigating our lives in a reality-based way of like, this is what I need, so let me just do it in this practical way, rather than what do I want to do, how can I make this fun. You can't just limit yourself to doing the things that you want to do that's enjoyable, but you can have a foundational understanding of what you find to be joyful and pleasurable. And by making these considerations, you're gonna be able to find things that you can incorporate that, because in order to be sustainable, in order to be focused, you have to incorporate certain things into your day-to-day activity, and that way you aren't just doing something monotonous in a way that's not necessarily going to support you. So this is an area that's really important, and really looking at what brings you joy by looking at your Leo placement is going to be really beneficial. And also this is looking at the sun and where it's transiting, not just where it is when you at the time of your birth, but where is it right now at any given time, because the sun is one of the most consistent planets that you can engage with. Even though Saturn is a planet that is related to consistency, Saturn is a planet that's related to consistency. The sun is very much about consistency as well. So this is definitely an area that you can focus on to and invite in whatever sign that it's in to use that energy. So for example, right now we have the sun in Leo. We also have Mercury in Leo as well. And so this is a great time to use the energy of Virgo. I'm sorry, did I say Leo? I meant to say right now the sun and Mercury is in Virgo. And Virgo is very much a practical, earthy energy. It's about goal, it's about planning, scheduling your day-to-day habits in a way where you promote productivity. And so this is where you want to take advantage of this Virgo energy. And my recommendation is to write a list of the challenges that show up with your ADHD. It could be just in general, but also during as it gets colder. And for every challenge, I want you to come up with 1 to 3 resolutions that are sustainable and workable and maintainable for you. And if this is something that you have a hard time with, you can look at AI for reference. You can also comment below, and this way I can give you some recommendations as well. For myself personally, the way my ADHD kicks in, especially during the cold season, is that I get cold easily because ADHD, we're very sensitized to our environment, sensory overloads, things of that nature. So when it gets cold, I kind of shut down. As far as I get confused and overwhelmed about what to wear, layering, things like that require a certain level of executive function, linear thinking that is really challenging for me. So I grew up in San Francisco, which isn't as warm as where I live now, which is in Los Angeles. So I do really well because I'm usually wearing a dress. It's one piece of clothing, I'm out the door, it's great. But when it gets colder, I need to layer, and this is where I get some challenges. So something that I do that I find really helpful is that I have a list on Google Doc of like cold season outfits that I can look at. And eventually I want to start taking pictures of myself wearing those outfits, which is going to be particularly beneficial because this is a way where you can literally just have a visual aid, which is very simple, very easy. When it comes to ADHD, you want to do things where you're minimized in as far as like how much brain power and thought you have to put into it, because you want to essentially reduce overwhelm. So that's something that I like to do. I also know that actually before I get into the next part, so having ideas of outfits of what to wear makes it really easy. But sometimes the ADHD brain has difficulty switching gears. So this may not work for where you live, so you'll have to find your own adaptive version. But for me, I like to have a lot of maxi dresses. And so when it gets colder, I'll just wear thermal pants underneath, I'll wear a jacket, something like that. So I'm using my existing system and I'm layering it so I don't have to do something completely new. You want to make things really manageable. And I think that sometimes people with ADHD, this is such a theme, we get really ambitious and optimistic when we're setting goals, and then we don't realize like this isn't necessarily going to be sustainable and workable. And so once you come up with a list, think of how you can make it simpler, how you can make it more accessible. Don't just come up with the list, but continue to refine it and improve upon it to make it easier for you. Don't just set the goal, but think about, okay, what is it going to be like to do this? What are the challenges that are going to come up? How can I make it easier? And continue to refine and tweak it, because that's the energy of Virgo. Virgo is constantly making regular improvements to make it better, make it better, make it better, because you can set all the goals that you want. If it's not sustainable, you're not going to use it. So that I think is a big thing. For myself, I'm also very sensitive to like fluctuations. I'm either too hot or I'm too cold, right? And so I have sleeves, for example, that I could put on and off. So, I have my transitional outfits, I have my cold outfits. I make it really easy. When it gets colder, I'm less likely to want to go out and do things. Our productivity also, this is for everyone, sort of reduces when it gets when it gets colder, because this is when, it starts with daylight savings, it gets darker earlier, and we're also, I feel like, waking up later. So think about what you can do to be more productive and efficient. What can you automate? This is the time of year where I start ordering food, getting stuff delivered to me with the grocery stores, so that I don't have to do so many different things. And I think that this is particularly useful whenever there is like a change environmentally, seasonally, or even if you're starting to have challenges in your life. The things that seem really easy normally can become a little bit harder. So just have a system available. Another thing that can be really beneficial is to write a list of like your ideal morning, your when you have low energy and moderate energy. And that's why you have a reference point, because people with ADHD, we have a hard time thinking and planning things. So having things automated and the information available to us easily is going to be something that can be really beneficial. We also get bored really easily, so having a list of different things, be aware of like what you need that brings you pleasure, that lights you up, and then think about have a list of like how you can incorporate that, but also have like options where you can alternate it. So your goal is still the same. So for example, if your goal is to exercise, right? That can come in different forms. It can be through YouTube videos, it can be through walking, it can be through going to the gym. You know, you need a variety. An ADHD brain gets very bored very quickly. So you want to have those adaptability, but you want to make it really easy to swap out and have that information accessible for you. The other thing I would say is nutrition. This is something that's really important. ADHD people, we have to make sure, I mean humans in general, we have to make sure that we're eating properly, that we're getting our proper exercise, there's a certain level of like movement, that we have tools that make it easier, that we feel supported. It's just that people with ADHD, we have a more greater sensitivity and less resilience when we don't have these tools available, so it's even more important. So when it comes to food, I may not want to necessarily cook, right? So this is where I have like charcuterie style, where I can just eat everything immediately. There's veggies, there's dip, there's fruit, there's salami, rotisserie chicken. And so I can eat it without it requiring prep work. I really enjoy doing wraps where it's just putting things together. Poke bowls where it's just essentially mixing things. If you want to plan a little bit more and have something hearty, something that I really like to do is create dump and go meals where you just put all the ingredients together in a Ziploc baggie that you just throw into a slow cooker. They do have ones that are pre-made that you can purchase. I find those flavors to be a little bland, which is why I like to make my own. And I also like doing that because Virgo season, it's ruled by Mercury, which is about our hands, it's about planning. So when you put a little bit more effort into it, things can be beneficial. Something that I noticed is that for me, I do really well with chopping and slicing and stuff like that, because that activity just keeps me physically stimulated, which keeps me mentally focused. And so, but when I don't feel like cooking, I lose that. The benefits of that, and this is where like putting things together in a dump and go bag can be really beneficial. Another thing that I've done is I reached out to a neighbor who's a chef, and I was like, hey, if I buy the food, the groceries, will you go and cook for me? I've also done like potluck things with my friends. This is a great way to use that energy during Virgo season where you come up with solutions. So for every challenge, you come up with 1 to 3 solutions. You want to train yourself in that mindset. Ask people who support that you trust for advice and insights. Look on social media. There are a lot of amazing ADHD coaches that you can use for reference as well. Now, as you go into Libra season, this is a great time to take advantage of body doubling. So think of like Virgo season as a time that you're planning and you're adjusting to those adjustments, and then in order to maintain it, you can use what a lot of ADHD people benefit from called body doubling, which is to have another person there, and when you have another person there, it keeps you accountable and you're able to stay focused. I like to do weekly co-working sessions because people come over to my place, I cook. That keeps me focused. And during that time that I'm cooking for me and whoever I'm co-working with, I also make a couple extra meals to hold me over. And so I do that, and then I go to the farmer's market and I have prep food that holds me over for half the week until I start getting into co-working. So it's about doing things that work until it doesn't, and then having something else kind of pick up the slack. And so it's things like that, looking at accountability. Libra is very business oriented. It's about finding solution. Libra is ruled by Venus. It's about interior design, decorating and stuff. Virgo is also about organizing. So another thing with ADHD people is that we're very sensitive to disorganization. We're prone to disorganization, but that disorganization can overwhelm us. And so something that's recommended is to, like, rather than overcommitting and getting overwhelmed when it's difficult to even get started with small tasks of organizing, is to pick one area that keep that place organized, whether it's a chair, a desk, whatever it is. So this could be something that you look at, and it is an area of your life where it's not cluttered and stuff, so you are able to focus in that area of your life. This can be something that's particularly good if, say, you have a hard time waking up first thing in the morning. Keep the area that you look at when you first wake up to be organized, so you have that frame. And then it becomes like this catalyst of, you have this one area that's organized, and then that organization starts to subtly spread in other areas of your life. So this is one way to do that, but really creating organizational systems that work really well. For me, I'm very sensitive to visual sensory overload, so a lot of the organizations that I have, it's out of mind, out of sight. And you may be thinking like, well, then I forget where things are. That's true. So what I do is I like to get baskets from the 99-cent store that are white, or I choose neutral colors and stuff, and I put everything in there, and it's put away. But I don't sit there and micromanage it into small categories, because that's not sustainable for me. But what I do is I put things in the bin and then I put it away, so I'm not visually seeing things that's overwhelming, but when I need to access it, it's easy. Also, this sounds crazy, but I feel like a lot of people with ADHD experience this, is don't use lids. I literally won't do something if I have to use lids. I just won't. That simple task of opening it up is just not sustainable for me. But I like to basically create an environment where I, by design, minimize clutter, because when you have ADHD, it's hard to stay organized. And so even when you're organized, if you see everything, that could be sensory overload. And then on top of that, you have challenges with staying organized. It kind of like, it sort of messes things up. So doing that and finding ways to keep things organized. And because transitions are difficult, having tools available so that when you transition, it just makes it easier for you, whatever that looks like. Have a bag with everything ready, things of that nature. Create a space that is organized. Find support for yourself. These are things that are going to be really beneficial. And then when we move on to the next few signs, we've got Scorpio, we've got Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. Now these three signs, they're all very strategic, but in different ways. So Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is very much about taking action. Scorpio is very strategic. It's a little bit more patient compared to Aries, which is also ruled by Mars. And so this is a time where, you know, with Virgo, it's about making it, with Leo, it's about doing things that light you up. Virgo is about making improvements to make that sustainable. Libra is to bring in that accountability and that external support. And then Scorpio is more of the psychological mindset, like what do you need? And this is a time where you can really take advantage of activating that hyperfixating energy, because Scorpio rules obsessions and compulsions. So think about things that light you up. Think about things that you could strategically focus on that bring you interest. And I mean, be careful with it, because sometimes when you're hyper-focusing, what ends up happening is that what ends up happening is that you're hyper-focusing and you start to neglect other areas of your life. And this is why I was saying, like, have pre-made food, stuff like that, that makes it really easy. Things that you could like leave in the fridge that's safe for room temperature is also really great. Maybe even setting an alarm so that you are able to bring the food out. I like to have food prepped and in the fridge. And so then it's just ready and easy to go, because there are times I'll hyperfixate so much that like I won't do things that I'm supposed to be doing. But having these reminders can be really beneficial. Doing things in a way that psychologically supports you, understanding your psychological motivation, the drives behind why you want to do things, can be really beneficial, and really leveraging that energy. I think that this is really great because like with Virgo, you can start to get really focused, and then with Libra, you have the accountability of other people, and then you start to crash, and then you can use that energy of Scorpio. Okay, but it's also a very like, it could be an isolating energy. And ADHD people, it's an interesting thing because being around too many people can be overly stimulating, but also being alone isn't necessarily going to help you, because people with ADHD, we need constant stimulation, variety, and stuff in order to stay focused. So this is really to say that I highly encourage you to kind of like find other people and resources in ways in which you can leverage support. And so before you get to the point where isolating makes you unmotivated and stuck because you're in the same environment, which is like unstimulating, this is where you can start to take advantage of Sagittarius, because Scorpio is a very heavy, dense energy, so it allows you to focus, but you want to be careful, because the more mundane an ADHD person's environment is, the more you have the potential to lose focus because of the lack of stimulation. So then you go into the energy of Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's very social, and it looks at the higher purpose and the higher perspective and meaning of things. So while Scorpio is more microscopic in energy, as well as with Virgo, Sag is big energy, but it's also very strategic, because it's represented by a centaur that has that bow and arrow, and it aims it at its goals. So this is the time to revisit what your goals are. How can you make it more spiritually fulfilling? What is the philosophy behind it? How can you make it more enjoyable? Maybe inspire others to be included into it, because this can be really stimulating with this like bubbly energy of Sagittarius. So think about what you want to do, why you want to do it, the higher meaning behind it, and just follow your passion. Let that be your motivating guide. It could be something that really helps you to stay focused, because it's important to do things that are bigger than ourselves in order to keep us going. Whatever that environment is for you, take the time to look at what that looks like. Make sure that you go on adventures, have fun doing things. Okay, and once you get that drive, and it's just about, it's like when goal strategists say set goals, and sure, you might fail, but you're probably going to get more done than if you don't set goals. Or when people say like, yeah, aim for, what is it, shoot for the sun, the moon, whatever. It's like if you don't make it, you're still in proximity, right? So have a general goal that you set with Sagittarius, and then you can refine it more as you move into the energy of Capricorn, which is the sign of success. It's about developing that foundational mastery. It's about being grounded, strategic, consistent in order to succeed. So this is where you want to maybe focus your energy on what do you need to do in order to feel successful. What does success look like for you? What are the practical strategies that you can implement during this time? We've been in the cold season for a while. We've got the energy of that Saturnian energy. So sort of that like chaotic energy has kind of settled a little bit. So this is a time where you can look at like how you can structure your life in a way that's going to be really supportive. And the thing is, Saturn is really good at being responsible in that sort of a way, but it can also get a little bit stagnant and kind of boring. But then you go into the energy of Aquarius, which is also ruled by Saturn, and so it's got that benefit of being around, of working with the energy of Saturn, creating that foundational support that's necessary to be successful, to be goal-oriented, to be focused, things of that nature. And then it innovates it, makes it creative in Aquarius sort of a way. And much like with Scorpio, where you're kind of like in that introverted retreating energy, and then you've got the energy of Sag to tie you together, and then you go into the energy of Capricorn where you kind of retreat again. Now you're in the energy of Aquarius, which is very social. You're connected to people through collective consciousness. Recruit your friends, use the support of the internet, online presence. This can be a way to help you. And you want to innovate things, make it interesting, make it unique, make it your own, because this is what's going to make it sustainable for you. This is a great way to use this energy to really kind of focus in and work on what, like really identify what works for you, what doesn't, as a way to refresh this energy. Because the sun moves into a different sign every month. Mercury, unless we're talking about during retrograde season, it takes about 3 weeks to transit. So you can use this energy, which is really supportive for people with ADHD because we have a short attention span anyways. So using these astrological transits can be especially helpful. Now, if you want to learn more about how you can use this to support your specific energy, I do have a service called Your Cosmic Support. And in this reading, I tell you where your support system is, the archetype of the support that you have available, where you can find them, when they tend to show up in your life, why they show up in your life, and how you can summon them. And this is also a reading where I give you recommendations with some of your greatest challenges and how to leverage this energy. I think that this is something that's really important because I've noticed that a lot of astrologers that focus on remedies, no shade, but I feel like it's very oversimplified, there's a lot of bypassing energy where it's like, you have this challenge, use a stone. And it's like, yes, that can help, but the planets have 4 different ways it can manifest: emotionally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually. And so using a stone, it's not going to be sustainable for everyone. The remedy that's going to work best for you is going to be determined by your specific placements. Is using a remedy that's going to be emotionally rooted versus psychologically motivated? Is that going to work better for you? Is it better for you to be physically active during this? Or is it better for you to do things in a more subtle way, working with the energetic realm? That depends on every individual. And so I feel like even with certain astrology readings, even though it's personalized, the approach can sometimes be one-dimensional, and this is why it's not really sustainable for a lot of people. I feel like in a lot of industries that I pursue, whether I've been a personal organizer, a mindset coach, and until I realize like astrology is my calling, I almost feel like I get clients that have been really unsatisfied working with other people in these fields, and then I go in and I custom tailor it in a way that's more sustainable. So if that's something that you're looking for, you can go to my bio, you can click the reading for Your Cosmic Support. And you don't have to give specific requests on what you want me to focus on. I can look at your chart, but if you have a specific thing, a theme that you want special attention on, you can go ahead and fill the questionnaire out and make that request. So for example, if you want ADHD solutions, things of that nature, I can take that neurodivergent approach, which I do naturally in my readings anyways, but with a special consideration with ADHD to give you recommendations that are going to be sustainable for you, because it really does depend on every individual. And for me, providing custom tailored insights that are sustainable, not just with recommendations that are going to work for you, but also recommendations on what you can do when life happens, shit hits the fan, when you have challenges, and how to redirect and mitigate that is, I think, more of a user-friendly type of reading. It's something that I absolutely love to do. If you'd like to get a reading with me, go ahead and book your Cosmic Support reading with a focus on ADHD or whatever it is that you want support on. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!